Hey guys, how we doing? Putting out another video with some information today. It's going to be a little bit longer. It'll probably be more like 10 or 15 minutes. It won't be trying to keep them short, but it's not going to work out this time. Hey, I've got three things I want to cover today. One's going to be about bartenders, and one is going to be about sponsoring memberships. And I've got my list here, and I just forget where I've already laid it down now. Where did I write my information at? Oh, in the 9 o'clock prayer. Real quick, before I talk about anything else, just as a reminder, today is Monday the 31st. I'm going to go and put out an all stats to each of the lodges today. All stats is that record that shows you where you're standing at today in your lodge as far as membership, where you're at for endowment, and all those type of things that I know a lot of the administrators and boards like looking at. It's just going to give you kind of an update where you're at, and the end of the month is the best time because that is changes daily. So the end of the month is the best report. Although, if you see that there's not an endowment for this past month, if that got sent in, that does not get updated daily. That's only updated once a month, so that wouldn't be on the all stats until tomorrow anyways. Also, Dick Schuyler, our state secretary, has asked lodges to make sure they turn in their information for their officers for the gaming commission for the state to be able to have their charity gaming at functions. That's nothing new. We have to do that every year. Seems this year that he's having a lot of trouble with lodges turning that information in, so make sure you get that turned in ASAP. I know he sent out another email recently. There have been some officers that have had issues with that. We've done it every year. They're already on the license for the lodge, so it's not like that private information is super private that no one has it because the state already has it. It just needs to be transferred to this form so that we can do gaming events at Indiana Moose Association big events. The big thing I want to talk about today is bartenders. They're the backbone of our lodges, and we're just not doing a good enough job training them nowadays. First, before you hire a bartender, you want to make sure they have some type of bartending experience. They need to know those basics before they come into a lodge situation, because most of the time, even an experienced bartender may not be familiar with the way a fraternal program or a private club works. And we need to make sure we're training them on that, because lately I've been in too many lodges where someone has asked about the 9 o'clock prayer or what Moose Heart is, and a bartender shrugs their shoulders. They have no idea. A bartender has to know how the organization runs. There was a brochure sent out earlier this year on the new bartending training. You can get that stuff from the supply house. But basically what it's saying is they're our front lines. When someone walks in and they're a new member, or they're thinking about joining, they've come in with a member and they're a qualified guest, the bartender needs to be able to tell them some stuff. Yes, members should be able to do the same thing, or a board of officers, but sometimes the board of a board member's not around. So they need to be able to tell you the basics of how a private organization works, how the club scene works, what sign-up boards are, how to play tip boards maybe. But they also need to know about Moose Heart, Moose Haven, and the charity work that we do. That way they know when they're coming in and buying that drink and playing a few tips, it's going to something good. Another problem we have with bartenders, and I've seen this going on in a lot of lodges, a member comes in to pay their dues, and they pay the flat lodge fee. The bartender and the members' fault also. They didn't realize that they were a Legion member, so they didn't pay their Legion dues. And 2 months from now, they're getting a letter saying their Legion dues are expired, and they're like, "Why? I paid my dues at the lodge," when they didn't realize they only paid their lodge dues. They didn't pay both. Anytime someone brings in, and pays their dues, that should be an automatic that the bartender or officer, whoever's taking the money, is saying, "Hey, are you also a Moose Legion member?" A lot of times when they go receipt, they'll take your old expiring card because they want to see your MID number and all that stuff, and it shows on there where they're a Moose Legion. It's the emblem on there. Train your bartenders to know to look at that emblem and say, "Oh, you also are a Legion member. Are you paying your Moose Legion dues?" And they should know how much those Legion dues cost also. I'm seeing that happen in a lot of lodges, and it's happened a lot lately with the shutdown and people, just sending in a check or whatever, and they're not getting their Legion dues paid also. Um, Also, another big problem that I've been seeing with bartenders, we know administrators and bartenders default and get a lot of sponsorships just by being in the lodge at the time someone comes in to join up. But what I am seeing is a member brings in a guest. That guest wants to join, and the member says, "Hey, what do I need to do?" And the bartender grabs the application. The bartender puts themselves as the sponsor on there and says, "Here, have them fill out this middle section." They should be offering that sponsorship to the member who brought that guest in first. Even if the member doesn't realize that they're going to get extra points for that, we have to remember that on our stats, which you'll see on all stats, there is a sponsorship line on there. Or we also call them preferred members. That's someone who was sponsored a member in the last year. And we want that number to be higher. If the bartender is sneaking all the applications that come in, that's wrong. It's throwing off our numbers, and they're getting those stats really fast. Now, we know that bartenders are automatically going to get extras anyway, so they should not be going above and beyond to take sponsors away from members who bring in guests in to join. I've seen that happen at least a half a dozen times in the last month that I've been on the road. You as an administrator, or if you have a social quarters manager, should be having meetings with your bartenders and discussing these things with your bartender. I'm telling you now, you need to be having more meetings than we're having. It seems like we're not meeting with our staff very often. At a minimum, you should be meeting once a quarter with your bartenders and discussing things that have changed. I've heard too often, well, not that much has changed. Well, yes, things are always changing. They need to be reminded to card members on a certain day, because whatever day the lodge is picked for, doesn't matter who they are, everybody needs to be carded. Or, an excise rule that maybe they have wrong. Or things that have changed as far as, example, this sponsorship stuff. We need to be talking with our members, our bartenders at meetings and having those conversations. Plus, a lot of bartenders have questions and then they don't feel comfortable enough to ask them sometimes. That's a perfect time when the lodge is closed and you guys are having a bartending meeting. It doesn't have to be long. It can be 30 minutes. Have some donuts for them. But that communication needs to be happening, and it's not happening across the board. I have too many bartenders saying, "Hey, I have a question," and it's not getting answered. Those are the times when we need to be sitting down and talking with them. Perfect example is a 9 o'clock prayer. I've had a lot of people ask about the 9 o'clock prayer. Some lodges are doing a good job and some are not. We need to be having them at least a couple times a week on the busier nights. At least Friday or Saturday, whichever of those two is the busiest night in those lodges. I don't expect them to have to be every night, although it should be every night. Yes, there should be an officer there to do the 9 o'clock prayer, but it doesn't have to be done by an officer. It can be done by any member. So if there's a night when there are no officers in the lodge, I'm not saying the bartender has to do it because the bartender's already busy, but remind them that encourage somebody to know it and do that and to pass the credit around. Because I've been to lodges where it's just a regular member doing the 9 o'clock prayer and another member that just wanted to help out passing the cradle around. But someone needs to be in charge of that. Also, in a situation that seems to be arising in more than one lodge is the women taking up for endowment and doing the 9 o'clock prayer. And then no women being there and it not getting done. And then the lodge is not doing it. And the men officer is saying, well, they weren't there to do it, so screw them. That's not acceptable. You have to be doing the 9 o'clock prayer. First of all, there are plenty of women that volunteer in the lodge and do other things. Have a man do it, because I've seen women do it for men, and then give the money to the women of the moose. Or I have no problem if the board says, hey, we did it on this night, the women weren't there, we're keeping that endowment and reporting it. I don't have a problem with that, because if the women want to complain, I'll say sorry, but there was nobody there to do it, so the men did it and kept the money. Not necessarily the best practice, but I'm fine as long as it's getting done. Us not doing that 9 o'clock prayer and not collecting that endowment only hurts the kids at Moose Heart. So we need to make sure that's getting done. Let's see. I'm at 10 minutes. I think it's about done. I covered most of the things I wanted to cover right now. But make sure we're having good communication with our bartenders and the board. and keep them apprised of things that are happening, and make sure your bartenders know about the moose, not just how to pour a beer and mix a drink. They need to know about us as an organization. And at a lot of lodges, I've got a few of the bigger ones that don't have or have paid employees and they're not members. You should make them members. If you're paying for their liquor permit, then pay for their moose membership while they're an employee there. That way they can come in and you know, on their days off and enjoy the lodge also. Again, like I'm saying, it's just communication. We need to make sure that we're doing more of that. I appreciate your time. I appreciate what you guys are doing out there. We just need to tighten up a little bit. I appreciate it, and as always, if you have any questions, please give me a call. Take care, guys.